think once I started working with biracial characters like me, I felt like it was home, and it was like, this is what I want to do. And for me, like the story, even if it's not centered around the identity, like Mexican white boy, I'm always going to use those characters because just the little ticks, even if they're not the focus of the story, that's what kids respond to, at least the readers I've met.
Where do we go from here, Matt? What's next for you? How do we? I think certain things need to be in the outrage camp, so that they stay lit and ablaze. So where now? What now? And how do we get the world to see that this is as important as getting, cultural diversity literature into classrooms across the country? It's time. I mean, I think it's well overdue.
I do this thing sometimes with students where I have them kind of tell me about their life based on 2 words, and something figurative, not literal. And many people have 2 different words, and they always at the end come back to me and they say, "Well, what would your 2 words be, to describe your life?" And I always say, "Secret revolution." And I think it's this. I'm not trying to be out there fighting a war or anything, but one thing I'm going to do always is in my books, I'm going to show that identity struggle, that cultural struggle. I'm going to have kids that are of color like me, especially kids who are mixed, because I think, more and more America is mixed. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing is that you're willing to like talk about the issue. So anybody who is wanting to talk about the issue, that's what it's all about. Keeping it, like you said, keeping it afire, keeping it lit. And I'm so excited that these law professors in Seattle are taking on the issue, and they're kind of bringing more heat to the court system. A bunch of these students are suing for the program to be reinstated. Let's hope that there's more coverage of this, because at a certain point, it's not about the books anymore. It's about their program.
And it's about, I think, a neglect in fulfilling the needs of the students who are taxpayer dollars. They're in the schools. They should be learning about their own lives reflected in your characters.
Yeah, well, I saw one. Somebody posted a comment and said, "If you want to learn about your history, go back to Mexico." And somebody else responded and said, "Well, the thing is, we've been here for 4 generations in Tucson." You know what I mean? So their history is in Tucson. So I just hope that they get their program back. This thing that's been in the works for so long. These teachers who have been working on the curriculum for 12 years. How do you just strip it away? And based on what?
And the irony
is Tucson was Mexico.
Tucson, right. Mark says Tucson was Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
When I think about your writing and your books, did you ever think that you would be the secret revolutionary in reality?
No, and you know what? The thing is, you hopefully as an artist, you don't come in with a plan, you're not trying to teach a lesson or anything like that, because that's not the job of the writer. What you try to do is just present things that you see, and usually it's the readers or critics that sort of find those little things that you're doing thematically.
Sure. They can respond regardless whether they're Mexican, biracial, black biracial, Asian.
Exactly.
I mean, it crosses the gamut because the experience is the same. That you tend to feel not a part of either side.
That's what it is, marginalization. And, there's a book that I was lucky enough to be one of the judges for the National Book Award this year, and the whole experience was made worthwhile because Tang Ha won. And it's a story about a Vietnamese girl going from wartime Vietnam to Alabama and her dealing with being other. And these are the stories that I just want the world to have, in addition to the stories that already are there.
And wouldn't it open up the world's eyes to the beauty and diversity?
Absolutely. That's what you hope,
We hope, but it's just that that tweet of seeing, and I'd heard of this Tucson law, or not even the law, but just the fact that they had taken on this role.
Yeah.
It got me so angry because you want to empower students and you want them to see themselves reflected in literature, and the fact that they had the opportunity and now it's being stripped for what?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to come back on, and you'll have to fill me in on updates as they become available with the work that you're doing, because I have a feeling you now are venturing into an area that's so needed. You talk about this in such a way that it's almost as though you had a premonition that you would be catapulted into this role of being at the forefront, but yet not so there. But this happened for a reason, I would say.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm happy because I feel like I'm just picking up the conversation from previous authors. Like when I read Saunders Cisneros' House on Mango Street, I was like, "Oh my God! Look at the color and the flavor of this story. This is what I want to read."
Yeah, that was great.
I feel like in a way I'm just kind of picking up the conversation from the books that I've read. And in this crazy world, you never know where you're going to end up. And it just so happened that it led me to a place like Tucson High School, where we had this dialogue, about the classes being taken. I will definitely do my part and continue to write about these kind of kids and marginalized characters and biracial characters. But thank you for, being one of the people who are willing to talk about it and get it out there in front of everybody.
I have biracial children, and I want them to see the world. I want their world to be what it is and not what is dictated to them. And that's important. Zeta was on I interviewed her about an hour and a half ago, and she was, phenomenal about just how this movement has to keep going.
Yeah, and she's a brilliant person. I've listened to her speak. She's great.
She is. Do you have any thoughts about, we actually spoke briefly about the Hunger Games and about the characters being, because they're black, some tweets went out that said, well, you spoiled it for me because I didn't realize that these characters were black. Do you have any thoughts about that, Matt?
What's going on with that? I've read the series, but I haven't seen the movie, so
nor have I. Haven't read the book, haven't seen the movie, but apparently the actress in the play, Rue is her name, is a black 13-year-old, and the students who went to see it, or the young people who went to see it, they couldn't fathom that this character from the literature, from the novel, was actually black. So it kind of messed it up for them. It messed up the punchline or the characterization of what they thought this Hunger Games character was about.
Well, what's a bummer is I got into a conversation once about, as a writer, how do you mark people? Like if you're talking about people in a coffee shop, you say, hey, there's a guy with a dog. There was a woman with a straw hat, and there was a black guy. And the only one that we mark, right, is with a race, is the other,
That's right.
So I think some readers, in their minds, they play the story a certain way, and then their image is sort of broken when they see it on the screen, and it's outside of what they assume. The interesting thing is, how come as readers we assume that they're white unless told otherwise?
That's so important.
Yeah.
But I could identify with one of your stories where you were sitting on the side and somebody threw a ball, and that you didn't expect them to throw the ball to you, and I was in my own mind in high school.
Yeah.
Playing basketball, but couldn't really play.
Okay.
So I was on the bench, and the fact that I could connect to that feeling of being neglected or just not being the cool one was enough. That's all I needed as a girl, as a black girl on this team with these players who were really good. Yeah. So where there's connection, I think there's hope.
I totally agree with you. And I think that's why we read, We read to find connection.
no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, I have to thank you for coming on to Boland's blog. It's been a treat for me to finally meet you and to thank you for the work that you've done and coming on to Writers Against Racism and giving your story back a couple of years ago. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And onward from here.
Yeah, and you too. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much.